And what we do is to project views and promote values. Well, this is the Live TV show. Wow. I welcome you especially to this edition of the program. I am Ife Arono-Kafo. And today on the program, our focus is on the environment. In 2015, precisely in September, the United Nations adopted the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, and that included 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Guess what? Of all the goals, lots of them actually point directly to the need to protect the environment. We're talking about environmental protection and sustainability as the bedrock of the SDGs that we all talk about. So today we'll be taking a look at the need to promote environmental protection in Nigeria and around the world. And guess what? I have with me the Dean of Environmental Sciences, Nnamdi, Azikiwe University, Professor Nwanna.
Welcome.
Thank you so much, Prof, for availing us of your time. Now, let us talk about the environment. You know, sometimes when we talk about these things, it appears maybe distant or foreign, but when the environment is mentioned, essentially, what do we talk about?
Thank you very much. When we talk about environment, we refer to the area around you, the space, the air, the water, whatever you have, your surrounding. That is the layman definition of what we call environment. And like what you rightly pointed out, over the years we've found out there's need for sustainability. You know, nature, or let me say mankind, is dynamic. You see, with the current development, infrastructure, common object age, and so on and so forth, of course one will expect that some will have some negative impact on the environment, but we're not going to fold our arms. So what we try to do is to see how we can sustain the good part of everything in the environment, because what we enjoy today, we look forward to having our children also enjoy it. That is the idea of sustainability.
Okay.
And not finishing it in our era, so that by the time we get to the next generation, you know, they will have nothing, or they'll be...
when you talk about things we enjoy, can you tell us, you know, some of them? Of course, you know, they are natural things, but coming from an expert, maybe we can better appreciate.
Yes, there are a lot of natural things. For instance, we wonder how we breathe fresh air. You know, the trees around us, you know, they take in CO2, carbon, and they give us oxygen. That oxygen, or let me say, those trees help to purify the environment. And of course, you know what we call the ecosystem. Most of the little plants, what they call it, insects, the fauna, the flora, they all have a role in the ecosystem. And when they are disturbed or when they are eliminated, it could lead to chaos or ill health.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, Prof, I would like for us to do a bit of an analysis of the 17 SDGs. We know that Goal 2 talks about zero hunger. Goal 3, good health and well-being. Goal 6 talks about clean water and sanitation, while Goal 7 talks about affordable and clean energy. We also have Goal 11 talking about sustainable cities and communities. And Goal 12 refers to responsible consumption and production. Goal 13, climate action. Goal 14, life below water. And Goal 15, life on land. We're talking about 9 goals or more, pointing directly at the urgent need for us to protect the environment. Why this emphasis?
Let me give you an instance. In Nigeria, before 1988, we were more concerned with hygiene, you know, how to keep our compounds clean and so on and so forth. But now, by 1988, I remember, they discovered toxic waste at Cocoa in present-day Delta State. That opened the eyes of the government. And when you talk about toxic waste, of course, is something that could that its devastating effects could last for years. You know, now that opened a new vista to what we call environmental protection in Nigeria. So Nigeria now moved beyond environmental sanitation coming out maybe last Saturday to say go and clear hair.
As a ritual or routine.
Good.
Yeah?
So now they enacted the act, the first Environmental Protection Act that later led to NESTRA and so many other agencies. You know, that kind of eye opener now made us to take a step further to check other things that could mitigate against our environment, even when it has not started. You know, for instance, you know that this massive cutting down of trees, you know, because of our level of development, we still use firewood and so on and so forth. Now we can't say stop that, but what we try to do, especially in my faculty and some other concerns, is to encourage people to replant. As you cut down trees, please, you know, plant more trees.
You mentioned toxic waste, and we know, of course, there's this talk and pressure. Is more like the global community is conscious of ozone layer depletion. That's another critical issue. Should Nigeria be worried about ozone depletion as well?
Of course, every part of the globe, because when we have the acid rains, for instance, in the Amazon jungle, which we have noticed a little
even
of that.
Fires as well.
Yes, it will still spread. Yes, of course, if we like in our own climate, if we don't start to check on time, it will gradually get to us. You know, when you're talking about a global issue, it's not always in isolation. You know, there are things that were happening in some climes. We are surprised that they are coming down here. Check desertification, for instance. If not checked, you know, there are agencies that are trying to check desertification in the northeast. Some of us are not aware. If not, before you know, the middle of Meduguri will just be sand. Of course, it will just be. And when you talk about desert is a wasted area, and there's nothing you can do in the desert except you try to reclaim it, which is a very expensive measure. So what I'm trying to say is that we are not going to wait until those things start happening, like air pollution, for instance. You know, these are the things that kick against the depletion of that help to deplete the ozone layer. When we're talking about air pollution, the generator, our cars, and so on and so forth, we might say that those ones are not much. What about the industries? Nigeria by day is getting more industrialized, and the amount of pollution those factories emit, you can't quantify it. So what we need to do is to make sure we think of alternatives. Alternatives, like if there are countries, I think European Union now, they've set out a goal or years where they will stop the use of
fossil fuels.
Yes. So they will now use electric cars. This is a measure. There are other measures, you know, whereby at least you reduce it.
Okay, now at the individual level, what are other ways, apart from possibly burning firewood, that individuals contribute to global warming and perhaps ozone depletion and other environmental issues?
Well, individuals on individual level, let me say, the more they can do is to help guard against it. But most of what can contribute a level danger comes from the industries. You know, it comes mostly from the industries, not from the individual level for now.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, now you mentioned acid rain and perhaps a part of Meduguri, you know, things like that. That's something that should worry us. But we know, of course, that in other industrialized countries like China and all that, you know, it's more like we are better off, don't you think, in terms of having a better environment? Or do you think we should also worry when other industrialized countries are supposed to do even more to protect the environment?
That will be coming from a point of selfishness. If we say, they are over-industrialized, let them stew in their juice. You know, what happens is that you find out, of course, they are industrialized. Let me say, the amount of emission is more in those countries. Yes, we know. But we are signatories to international treaties, you know, where our country have gone to sign, that will be part of prevention, like protection. Sure. So we have to keep fit. So we have to. We don't do. It's not like saying how many industry do we have. Let them go and worry. You know, So it's a global trend.
Now, Prof, let me also bring you to the issue of course, during rainy seasons, it's not just about the riverine areas in the country. Even places in the urban areas are experiencing increasingly cases of flooding. And what's fueling this, and why do we have more cases of flooding? The other day, somebody told me that they couldn't sleep in their house. Their mattress was inside water because, there was a heavy rain also. We see that happening, and it's more like a recurrent decimal. What's going on?
Let me start by saying that first, those things don't happen accidentally. We have meteorological agencies, of which in my faculty we have Department of Geography and Meteorology. These people could give warning about flooding where there's likely to be, and those people we advise to move to higher grounds. Sometimes they ignore such, but that is not just that. But in urban areas like in Awka, for instance, you find out that we experience such menace, especially around the Azikiwe. Of course, when it rains, you dare not try to cross the road. The flood will just take you away.
Even when driving, yeah.
Yes, even when driving, is that serious? But part of the problem is that you find out that most of the drainages are already blocked. That is one. Then people build haphazardly. The building plan, people don't stick to the building plan. And let me also say that even the enforcement, because they're talking about urbanization or urban planning. The cities are planned. They should make provision for drainage and all those things. But people could block those things arbitrarily, and the agencies that are supposed to enforce it don't do anything. So by the time it rains, of course, the force of rain, wind, and sun. Of course, that of sun, for instance, we are not harnessing it for solar. Wind too could wreak a lot of havoc, like the hurricane and so on. Then water appears to be the worst. So these are the things when we are planning, we plan. How do we take care of these things?
Okay, so it's not just about building, it's about planning from the beginning. Yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And two, enforcement too. After planning, there should be agencies to enforce, to make people comply to the laid out plan. The idea of planning urban areas started as far back as the Greek period. It's not a new thing. So I don't see why at this stage we should not plan our cities and enforce that things should go like that.
Okay, this is still the Live TV show, and when we come back from this break, we're going to take Prof up on issues like open defecation. Can someone actually live in Nigeria and not practice open defecation after this break?